Lovely. Hello, everyone. My name is Pamphinette Buisa. I am a practicum student with the Vancouver Island Human Rights Coalition. We are doing a feature for the Black History Month, and we will be doing a lot of discussions and talking about what does Black History Month mean to whoever we're interviewing, and just kind of unpack that and look for opportunities for more conversation and dialogue. To begin, just so that we can start in a right way, we are currently situated on the unceded and unsurrendered territory of the Lekwungen and Wisanish-speaking peoples. It's important whenever we do any sort of work in any sort of space to situate ourselves and understand the impacts of the colonial histories, the oral histories, and the ways in which we benefit and continue on in our day-to-day. So without further ado, hello, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Very, very good. So for those that don't know, tell me a bit about yourself. Name,
my name is Dre, and I'm an artist. Primarily, I'm an illustrator and a tattoo artist here in Victoria. And I've been living here for like 3 years, I guess, almost 4 years. And yeah, I guess that's all it is about me. My background, I'm Dominican and Mexican. And like, I guess, cause this is like a Black History Month thing, I'll say that like, kind of like my journey into like becoming who I am now, I guess started probably when I like started high school and just started having to deal with like identity and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I feel like in my art practice, I think where I kind of like cross over into identity stuff is when I look for like inspirations in other artists, and a lot of times you don't really see people depicting like Black and brown people unless it's like in like a powerful political way. And I think, I don't know, it's kind of nice to see people being represented just doing like normal things, and just like seeing that all the time, which I'm kind of trying to get into illustration so that I can like see stuff even in my own work that I want to see in other places. But yeah, that's me.
Cool. What are you currently working on in terms of projects, or like what's occupying most of your time?
Right now I've mostly been tattooing, but I started working on a couple days ago because like it started with like I had a bit of an obsession with Betty Boop during the second lockdown, and I started drawing her, and then I like learned about her and found out that she was like actually a Black woman, that they like kind of like took her likeness and like made her into this like black and white but like white character for TV. And then she was like very over sexualized, but then kind of like around like the 80s satanic panic era, when everything got like super religious again, they like kind of like desexualized her and turned her like back kind of like dopey dumb. And so I started drawing those, and then I was like, oh, I want to like learn how to like make comics, because I haven't really like stepped into that. So lately I've been like trying to teach myself how to like illustrate so it looks kind of like Archie comics or something like that. I think I don't know, I just want to make like a little zine with like a character, no words, because I don't know, I'll just have some images for doing some like cool stuff. And I don't know, I've always been a little bit obsessed with like spy movies and stuff, so I like wanted to like bring that in. But yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, I definitely am far from art at all. That definitely not an artist in any sort. So that's super cool that you're exploring different avenues of art, and illustrating to comics to I did not know that about Betty Boo at all. It's really interesting how that.
Yeah, it's like really like packed in history. It's kind of cool, but yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. So for you, what is the importance of Black History Month, and what does it represent for you?
I think it's kind of cool that we can like take a moment and pause and like reflect on like a group of people that like really hasn't been given any like moments or like just like pause, allowed to like slow down, because I feel like there's not really time for that. and like all the busyness of like kind of like surviving as like someone who is like Black. I think it's really important to stop and like remember all the people that work so hard to be able to get us to like the point where we are now. And even people who maybe like weren't like activists in that sense, but were just like living their lives and kind of like moving into new places where now we can just like go freely without even kind of like thinking about that. Yeah, I think it's like, I do, as much as it's kind of weird how like commercialized it gets, it is really awesome to see like ads like kind of like like showing off people, or like I was watching Sports Channel and it was like Black people in hockey, or like, and they're just like putting that out there, and it's like nice to like see that, like, I know it's like 1 month and it should be like all the time, but like there is this like push for like representation, and even if it's like being done with like weird motives, it ends up showing people like, oh, like you can do all these different things, and like this doesn't change who you are, and doesn't, like, I don't know. Yeah, and I think it's like that's really powerful, as well as like it provides like a time for like people to kind of like see each other. I think, which is really amazing, because I know at like the rally that you like hosted in like that amazing like moment, it was like so amazing to like see all these other faces, and I think that that's like really encouraging when, especially because we're like in a lockdown, we don't see anybody. To be able to like look over and see like someone else doing something cool over there and being like, wow, keep it up, and like I see you, and like I hear like what you have to say and like that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's how I feel.
Yeah, no, I think it's great, especially as you were mentioning, with us being in lockdown in, you know, COVID, it's so much harder to even see people. So the very fact that, yes, I agree with, you know, potential motives that may be a bit questionable, the importance of seeing someone and seeing like their impacts and what that does in community, and what that does even for like young Black people, young Black youth, and like where they aspire to be and where they aspire to go. And within that light, is there any specific Black figures in history, whether in your life or someone that's just inspired you? Yeah.
I think like I was like thinking about this because I saw that question, and it's like a lot of people, but I think like in my life right now, I could probably like narrow it down to like some artists I find really inspiring. The first would be like Willow Smith, because like she's like so much younger than me, but like so cool and dope. But like she started like releasing like music when I was in high school, and it was like the first time I'd ever kind of seen like a Black girl just kind of like do her own thing and like kind of like do whatever she wanted. Like obviously she had like the resources too, but she really like kind of was just like, I'm my own person. And I went to like a really white school, and it was like really hard to feel like valid if I wasn't a stereotype. And so it was like really encouraging to see someone just like doing on it, regardless of like all sorts of people, like even Black people were out there being like, what are you doing? You're acting a fool, like all that kind of stuff. But she was like, no, I like doing this, like I'm doing my thing. And it was like super encouraging. Just realize that you can pursue whatever you would like to pursue. And then another person who I just like back in like the Tumblr days, I used to like follow them because I thought they're really rad artists. Their name is Sage Adams, and they ended up like designing like a album cover for SZA, but they are like such a cool like multi-medium like artist, and like they did all these like cool illustrations, and I've always like thought that their work was like really rad, but they're also like a really cool like wholesome person that like I wish I could hang out with them. I'm not cool myself, like, I wish, because they're just like, yeah, they're really dope. And then like in my actual life, I would probably say like my studio mates. That's like Levine and Veller, Sophie and Sim, and it's like really dope to be surrounded by a group of like queer and like women of color. It's just like so inspiring to like see them pumping out work and like doing stuff, and just kind of being in that atmosphere really inspires me to like keep on working, because I find sometimes like you just fall into those like creative blocks and like you don't really want to push. And in terms of tattooing, there's this amazing page called Ink the Diaspora, and it really highlights like Black and brown artists that are like all over the place, that don't really get like moments to like be in spotlights because people don't take the craft seriously, or don't think that Black people deserve to have tattoos because it's their skin, and like all this other weird like myth stuff that kind of comes up. And like closest to me are like two of the other artists that I've connected with who are in Vancouver, April, and then like Shanice. And their Instagrams are Jalapeno Springs, and Shan's is One Punch Shan, and they're super dope artists, super dope people. And it's really inspiring to see people who are like doing the same thing in their own bubble, and like being able to kind of like work up to that. And like yeah, it's really awesome seeing people who are doing what you want to do, like as contemporaries. Yeah, I guess.
Wow, yeah, I definitely, if you can after this, send me all their contacts and all the contacts of the people that you definitely want to put on. I think it's important, especially when it comes to representation and supporting, whether it be, you know, support is shown in different ways, whether it be, you know, with your coin, you know, Black businesses, but also uplifting like the intersections within that. I know you were saying, you know, queer, women of color, and just like different, you know, places. I think it's important, especially with you're saying the ink diaspora, just showing that, you know, there's a lot of different Black experiences with, you know, so much great work that's being done in various communities, and that the Black experience isn't the same. So yeah, for sure, send me all those links and I'll make sure that those watching can also see the great work being done. So looking at you introspectively, you know, obviously I've known you in community, I've seen your work and you are so talented. And I know that with, you know, a lot of successes and a lot of, you know, who we are today comes from somewhere. And so looking at your journey and what, you know, experiences you've gone through, if you can go back in time and think about what advice you would give to your teenage self.
I think like to be kinder to myself. I don't think I gave myself a lot of grace or like space to grow. That I held myself up to like such high standards. At the time, I was like very involved in like track, and I kind of saw that as like my only route to be Black. And so when I had like an injury that ended up like kind of like stopping, it was like really hard to figure out where I fit in, because I was no longer like an athlete. I was just like another person in the school, and that had kind of become like a safe kind of zone for me to exist in. And I think that like it's really hard to like free yourself from like how you're being perceived. And I wish I could just be like, yo, it doesn't matter like what these people around you think or want or like from you. You can just be you. I think it's like really difficult, especially like being like like a little Black girl, because like people really like over sexualize people very young, but also at the same time are like distance themselves from you. And it like I've done like some work in schools and you still see it, so it makes it really sad that like there's this like difficult place to exist, and it's like much more difficult than like other places. Like obviously everyone has their struggles, but everyone's struggling with identity, but I don't think everyone's struggling with like identity and also like where do I fit in as like this type of person, and like do I need to check off these stereotype boxes, or can I be what I would like to be? Am I only allowed to be these things? Yeah, I think that it's important to find a way. I know it's like hard, like I'm definitely not there yet, but to like be able to look at yourself in the mirror and like love that person. Cause like, yeah, it's just honestly now I'm still struggling with this, but it's hard because like, you know, people love tearing down Black women, like all the time, whether that be like other Black women or Black men, or, you know, it just kind of is like an easy scapegoat to like pull at and like tear at and like invalidate. And it's really hard to be able to like love yourself when that's just like all around you, people kind of like trying to like get at your identity. Yeah, I don't know. I try to be kind to myself. I try to stay positive and all that, and not focus on those things, but it is definitely like a journey, and like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting when you were mentioning about Yeah, the pressures of like stereotypes, like society ascribing some sort of idea of you and placing that on you, and then feeling, number one, I can't even abide or fill that role of whatever idea you have on me, but also that inability of when you want to define yourself, the judgments that come alongside. So then there's lateral violence that happens, but also, internalized violence where, it's harder for you to like think of yourself in a positive light when everyone around you has, structures, people closest to you also tear you down at the same time. So I completely hear that, and I too have experienced that in the same in that same idea. So and I think in the context of human rights and the ability to advocate for ourselves and the different types of people there are, the different communities that there is. What for you does human rights mean to you?
I think I was like looking at this question because I feel like it doesn't need to be. I don't know. It feels like really deep, but also I'm like, is it? But also it is. I'm like, I just think to me it means like everyone has like equal access to like the things that they need to be able to survive in the best way possible. Whether like regardless of what community you're from. And when I was thinking about that, I was really thinking about like the amount of like transphobia and homophobia that exists even within like Black communities, and like do we like how do we make sense of being like I deserve rights and I don't deserve to feel like this and I don't deserve to be like fight or flight all the time, but these other members of our own community also don't exist like deserve to exist in that same way, and it's like really confusing, and it doesn't make sense. But I think that like we all have like needs and wants and like all those things, and I don't think that like things like skin tone or like sexual orientation or like how able-bodied you are or anything should come in the way of you and like you getting those things or being able to achieve whatever you've set out to achieve. Like I think that people make a lot of choices, and like people who are different get like shortchanged quite often.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that there should be things that like barricade you from achieving those things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we should just like be able to like see each other as like we're all humans. We all like at the end of the day, we all want and need the same things. And I don't think that each like one of us gets to decide like who else doesn't deserve to have those things. Like I don't think that's something that should even be in our like power to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I completely agree. And I think when you even see historically, like it wasn't when within the context of Canada, like Indigenous people, their access to vote, their ability to even be considered as a human, to participate within the electoral system. When we talk about just historically, who was counted as a human and who has always been counted as a human. And even within the context of human rights and the way that we understand it, oftentimes, when we talk about trans folks or a lot of people within various intersections, even people who are a bit more street involved, people who use substances, people who live on the streets, in what ways in which their human rights are also, valued and validated. And we see there's tremendous discrepancies with that. So I completely agree that, human rights should be a very simple concept, but time and time again, we see that disproportionately, not everyone is seen and perceived as a human, or their humanity is even humanized at all. So with the theme of the series being The Future is Now, when discussing issues around race and racism and things of that sort, what do you see as what's missing in terms of the conversation of what needs to be done, or things that need to be a part of making that better future?
I think like I don't know, for myself this year I've really been thinking about like listening more to other people's like their stories and like how they got to the place where they are, and like listening to them talk about like the things that they've worked through. I think that like we need to be able to listen to people like tell us like their side of events. I think that a lot of times we just hear what is told to us, and it's not always like taking into account like that humans were like the statistic numbers come from like actual people's lives. And yeah, I think it's really easy to make light of that. I was also kind of thinking about this in terms of like coming from like a religious background. I'm not religious anymore, but like there is a weird conversation of like the fact that like church and like state are so close, and it has like quite a hold on a lot of people. And like I know in like my family, it's really hard to watch them give really hard earned money away so that somebody else gets to live like really well, just so that they feel like spiritually saved, but then they still go home to like not live well. And it's like kind of hard to see. I've just been thinking a lot in terms of like, well, there's like lots of stuff going on in the world, but like I was like watching like a Vice doc, and it was just like kind of talking about like pastors and their role and like civil rights. And I think it's like really amazing that people are leading, but it also really pains me that there are people in churches who directly are like oppose like things that to me seem like just rights that we deserve to have, but that has such a like a hold on some people. And I think that we all get to, and we all deserve to be able to believe and have like a way of life that we like. But when like those in charge of how you're doing that are not taking into account like the lives of people that aren't living well, and they aren't getting, I don't know how to explain it. Like I was thinking about like in terms of like my parents went to a church that was like very, very conservative, and it was also very, very affluent. And so they said a lot of things, like the church said a lot of really hurtful things towards the LGBTQ community, but because they're affluent, like lots of people listen to those things. And so like that is influence that was so like badly directed. And it's like hard to see people be able to like be like, this is my moral code, and it means that these people don't get to live well. And it's like kind of painful to me to think that I was like a part of that at some point, and like listening to that. Yeah, I just like, it's really hard to see like these numbers of like amounts of like just like attacks on people and stuff like that that's happening. I know there's lots of positive things happening in the world too, but it's also really hard to like see that and then know that there is wealth in these pockets that isn't being like distributed properly. And then like also choosing who to distribute to. That being said, I also like don't know. Like I like I've been thinking about this question a lot, and like I've lived my life to this point just existing and doing what I have to do to continue to exist. And like there are things that I would like to see. There are like ways that I would like to like be able to live that I don't think I will be at this point. But I also like I've kind of been like lost for like how that happens, like how does it change, which is like, no, it's kind of a really weird headspace that I've like been kind of in. I'm trying to like figure it out for myself too. Like I want so badly for like the next generation of kids to not have to have those same experiences, or like to not have to hear the same things said about them to them, and like for people's land to be like fully respected, and like, you know, like all these things. I want these things to happen, but me myself, like I don't know like what personally to do sometimes, in other than like get educated and like, you know, donate money to places where it gets like distributed to people, or like for causes. I sometimes feel like kind of like I don't know like how to help, or like how to make that change, or like what that looks like. I don't know. I don't think that even answers the question.
No, it does. It does.
Just like, I don't know.
Yeah. I think you touched on a lot of really strong points, and I think especially when it comes to distribution of wealth, distribution of power, access, resources, within the context of even understanding human rights, it's like exactly what we're talking about, is that, you know, when we talk about human rights is understanding the power dynamics that are oftentimes in play, the huge discrepancies, like even like living in the global north versus living in the global south, just the access, the fact that we can use computers to have communication and be able to still be in various bubbles while in a global pandemic, and I think about for myself, like the laptop I'm using, the phone I have, the coltan minerals that they have comes from the Democratic Republic of Congo. And I'm thinking about, the kids that are constructing these things, right? The labor that puts into our ability to communicate. So within the context of, who's excluded in the conversation, who is seen, who is unseen, and who's continuing to be, outside of the conversation, I think that is the issues. And yeah, I think when we talk about how the future is now, it's important for us to acknowledge, what has happened in the past, but also the need and how we can help. And as you mentioned, we have to educate ourselves. We have to, be open our eyes to what's actually going on. And yeah, I think you touched on a lot of strong things, and will allow for the audience or whoever watching to think about that. Because when we talk about Black history, when we talk about various experiences within our communities, there's so much going on, and it's important for us to understand that because we're not a monolithic community, that we have to look at the different intersections. We have to look at who is seen and who isn't. So yeah, well, all this to say, thank you so much for joining and being a part of the Black History Month series. Do you have any last final comments or words you want to share?
Thank you for having me first. I really appreciate you reaching out to me and thinking of me. I'm really open if people have opinions that differ to mine. I'm no, that's not right. Please tell me. I just want to know and learn and hear other people's perspectives. Yeah, I think that we're always changing places or changing understandings. I know there are people who are Ether is more educated than I am. I'm pretty much just an artist. So yeah, that being said, I just really appreciate being able to have this opportunity to talk, and yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for joining. Yeah.